Hey guys, it's Brett Burns with The Prepared Man. First time I'd like to say it's a long time no see. We're going to try to get back in the swing of things, shoot some series of videos of just some thoughts, some things that we've been facing here lately in our community, and just how we would react to it as a prepared individual or a woodsman. Now, today we are out in the woods just right away from my home, not very far, and I'm carrying a kit because I really started thinking, how would we build a fire in this situation? So let me give you some peripheral information. For the last week and a half, we've been hit with heavy to intermittent rain every day. We are subject to some flooding, and I'll try to post some footage right around here somewhere of just localized flooding. And I was lucky enough yesterday to fly some unmanned aerial vehicles in our area, taking a look at some of the flood damage in the community. Um, we do live in a small rural community, so a lot of these homes are going to be hit without support. A lot of these homes are heated by fire. A lot of these homes even have open fireplaces. So I started thinking when I was looking at this footage, how could I build a fire in this area? To compound that issue, Thursday night into Friday morning, we received approximately 1 to 3 inches of snow that's sitting on top of just soupy, nasty mud. Now, I'm outside today with none of my peripheral items that I keep in my home, tinder and kindling and things like that. And I wanted to talk about just the fire kit that I carry, my philosophy behind the fire kit, and then I thought we would take a look at starting a fire in this area because I waited till it started to melt off. So now we have snow, ice, rain, mud, everything's saturated. So we're going to seek out some dry fire wood, some dry kindling, and things like that, and try to start a fire. So first, I want to talk about my philosophy of why I carry 3 cigarette lighters. I carry 3 cigarette lighters in my kit. First off, I don't use any tobacco products at all. I still carry 3 cigarette lighters in my kit. When I'm in the woods, I carry a cigarette lighter with me every day, just in general, and I thought I would talk about my philosophy behind that. I know that we've for years looked at that popular thought that two is one and one is none, and that's a great philosophy to live by. But I'm all the way up to three, and the idea is that my gear is in 3 locations when I'm in the woods. So if I do have one that no longer functions, I'll still have the ability to build fire. First, let's talk about that. Then we're going to look at some of my other kit and my kit choices and why I carry this gear during this time of year. First lighter is on my person. I just carry a Bic Mini and I have electrical tape wrapped around it. I'll bring it up here and show you guys. So I have a Bic Mini that I carry every day. This lives in my watch pocket on my pants every day, in no conditions at any time, including covered in mud. Uh, I've never not got actual flame from that cigarette lighter. So, and that cigarette lighter in my pocket is probably 2, 3 years old. It hasn't changed at all. The second lighter that I carry is probably the most important and the one that gets most use, and I carry it on my haversack or my shoulder bag or any kit that I'm carrying. If I'm wearing a belt pouch, I'll put it in the belt pouch, but I typically like it to be in something detachable, so it's in my haversack today. And I keep it with a string attached. I got some camera equipment in here, so just bear with me. I keep it with a string attached to the outside. It's another Bic lighter, more electrical tape that I can use to pull fuzz if I'm pulling fuzz off my jeans to make a tinder bundle. This cigarette lighter also lives in my haversack. It just goes down the side. The string makes it easy to retrieve out of my pack. If I'm working, I'm trying to prepare my tinder, like today I actually have huge drops of water and snow falling out of trees. I'm trying to protect that tinder bundle. I can just draw this out because I know it's the only thing on a string on the side of my pack. It is the only thing that lives on the right side of my pack and attached to a string. Sometimes I'll have an inch roll of Gorilla Tape that lives tucked in my pack and tied to my strap, but this is the only thing that lives tied to a string on the right side of my pack. I'm left-handed. It's easier for me to know where all that stuff is in my offhand. In addition, I have one more cigarette lighter that lives in my pack that would be back at base camp at all times. So that doesn't come out of my pack. It's sort of my last resort for a cigarette lighter, sure flame. I carry a lot of stuff to start a fire. I don't like to be cold. I've been cold. You lose that motor dexterity pretty fast. I rely heavily on cigarette lighters for that type of fire. Now, when we're out in more ideal conditions and I'm starting fires, I'll do flint and steel. We even did some fire rolls recently where we're rolling the tinder bundle, things like that. At no time will I rely on a bow drill fire as my only functional fire. That's just poor woodsmanship skills. It's poor preparation, and it goes against everything that we stand for. So when we look at these fire kits, I carry 3 cigarette lighters, sure flame all the time. So when I'm carrying a total of, and I brought my cigarette lighter out of just to show, there's 3 cigarette lighters that I'm carrying at all times. I always buy bright colors. I know everybody in the bushcraft community is like, I'm gonna buy something brown and OD green and black. That's all great. I buy orange, red, yellow, white. You keep buying those so I can find those cheaper. I like that. I always carry 3 cigarette lighters. In addition, then we go to my secondary fire starting tools. I do have a ferro rod on my knife today. I typically don't carry one on my knife. I carry a ceramic rod. But I have one ferro rod that will live in my belt pouch. It'll go in my pocket. It'll be on my knife. A lot of my drawstring hoodies have a toggle that's a ferro rod. I carry a lot of ferro rods. In addition, in my haversack, I also carry a large ferro rod, a really thick ferro rod. This is, I don't know, a 1/2 inch by 5 inch maybe. And I have Gorilla Tape around it. And I always carry that ferro rod. In my actual fire kit that I carry in my haversack, I never carry my fire kit down in my pack. I have another ferro rod. And let's see, let's move some of this camera equipment, get my fire kit out, and I'll show you what that looks like. So, in addition, this is my fire kit that lives in my haversack, and I have 2 different pieces here, and I'll talk to you about what they are. This is my actual fire kit. I keep a flint and steel tied on the outside. I have 2 commercial zip fire starters. I don't prefer one brand over the other, but this is currently the one that I'm carrying. I carry some bird's nest material in here. Boom, there's another ferro rod lives down in there. I got a couple of waxed discs. It looks like I need to put a couple more in here. That's tulip poplar bark. This is fat wood, some type of non-commercial fat wood that I've gathered somewhere. There's always a couple of sticks of that in there. In addition, I typically carry a tinder pouch. Now, I see a lot of tinder pouches on the internet, and people carry waterproof tinder pouches. That's great. It keeps the water out. There's a piece of waxed jute that I carry in there too. I don't carry a waterproof tinder pouch because this rarely lays on the ground. I carry a nice breathable tinder pouch that I can actually swing and aerate these things if I need to in humid environments. So inside here I have more fat wood, and you can see this is just a fat wood branch that I've split out. I've got tons of tulip bark, and then this is also part of my 18th century kit that I carry when I'm doing 18th century events. So there's my flint and steel down in here and a few other things because we're more limited there. So I got a piece of flint. I always carry a backup piece of flint in my pack, but this is my fire kit, especially in cold weather. I carry one other piece that a lot of people don't carry otherwise. Here's another piece of fat wood that I carry, and that's just homegrown stuff. I carry some Yuko storm matches when it's cold. Like I said, I'm not want to be cold. In addition, I carry one of 2 things, and I use this because this is in my more traditional kit. I carry a piece of cane pole or bamboo that's been hollowed out all the way through. You can see all the way through that piece. And I use this as just to blow an ember and get an ember started. I've used this a lot. This one's been cleaned out a lot. You can see it's got hot here in the coals because I don't hesitate to put it right down in the coals. It's cut off just so it fits in the top or bottom of my haversack, just so it fits perfect and I don't have to worry about losing it, and it also keeps my haversack straight. So I'm gonna get my tinder bag, get my fire kit. I'm gonna wrap up my theory behind my fire kit, and then we're gonna try to get a fire started. So my theory behind this haversack kit is step 1, I have a lot of redundancy, and I call these call these different things, but the idea is that I bring things with me. I have a reserve, so I have all my tinder. I have repeatable steps, so I have repeatable ferro rods. I have repeatable fire starting that is sure flame, things like cigarette lighters, matches, and I carry those things in such a way that I know that I can repeat that should one fail. In addition, I usually have a match safe or two rattling around. This one has strike anywhere matches on it that I can strike off of just about anything. I carry these over and over again just simply because this is the kit that works for me. So here's what I break that down into. I have 3 R's. I have a reserve, I repeat, and then I retrieve. I typically try to retrieve from nature those tinders to get this fire started. Now, like I said, we're going to try to start this fire today. It's going to be difficult because it's rained here for off and on for the last 2 weeks. We've had snow on the ground that is set with snow, ice, now water on top of all of these items. So I'm going to look for these ways to start a fire. And the ways to do that is just look for simple shelters outside in the environment. So we're going to take a look at a couple. I'm going to gather some tinder. It's a very similar tinder collection that you've seen in some of my other videos. It's tried and true. It works. And what you do to find these is you look for these areas while you're walking, while you're traveling. I highly suggest things like this in cold weather. Stay away from a body of water. You're literally next to a refrigerant as air moves across it. Stay away from ridge lines. You don't want to be up on top of the ridge where air is coming up and off. So as the hot air, the warmer air falls, it will actually push that cold air up a ridge line because it's just like a weight. You know, you got to think of air as moving. It's constantly moving. So stay away from those areas. Stay away from bodies of water. Don't camp next to a body of water. You're facing humidity, you're facing that colder air, and it's just going to be a lot harder to stay warm. And finally, make sure you're not camping or sitting down in a drainage area. You look at these places and you're looking for places free of leaves. They're free of leaves in the month of February because drainage has washed those leaves away. So you need to stay away from those areas. Look for places that have leaf coverage. Look for things like evergreens, like this pine behind me, but you're looking for them low to the ground so they make sheltered areas. And mostly, guys, just look for someplace dry. So let's take a look. We're going to pull some of my kit and try to start a fire. So here's a good example. You know, this has been out in the weather for quite some time. You know, we can harvest fat wood from this as well, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But this tree is dead. It's fell, but it's provided this shelter here that's going to have some home for some dry tinder. So we're going to look for things like this. We're starting really small. We're looking for dry wood. So we're going to dig back in here. You know, it's February. I'm not concerned about snakes. I'm not concerned about anything like that. You know, we're going to look for these dry areas. Now, you may have to hit more than one in order to just find enough to get your fire started. So I found 2 pieces. Let's make a cut and go look someplace else. So this is our next stop. This is a jackpot, so to speak, when we're looking to build a fire in wet weather. And all of this is soaking wet. So you kind of think, why is that a jackpot? This is a dead pine. So as I pull these back, I can find these spots, like these knots, and this knot, and that knot is what I'm after today. So I'm going to reserve that in my kit, put it back in my haversack so I can use that to start a fire. I'm going to break out my other cold weather essential. If you're not carrying one of these, go home. My axe. So I'm going to pull my axe, and I'm actually going to chop up in here and try to get this knot. So let's see what we can get done. Nice and simple. You can see there's resin in there. All of this is wet. Usually rolls right off. This is ready. I'm going to cut all this wet stuff off. That's going to be my fat wood for today's fire. Other things to look for, and this is one of my personal favorites. This limb has actually died and fell and hung in this tree. So it's literally been hanging out drying out, ready to be used. So I'm going to take this today too. Another thing that is great to know about is things like these, not necessarily fire tinder, not kindling, but a good way to get a fire started, especially off of ferro rod. This is a beech tree. It'll keep these dead leaves all winter. I'm going to use these to catch embers. I'm just going to pull a couple handfuls of those, stuff them in my pockets. This is more is good type thing, so we're going to pull as many as we can. We'll go through all this inventory. I'll lay it on top of my haversack before we get started actually building the fire. So here we go. This is what we collected just to start this fire. This would be in preparation to an additional fire. Like I said, this is a video, so I'm not really worried about it that much today. But you know, I would have a lot more should I actually be starting a actual fire. I've laid it on top of my haversack as a weatherproof membrane. That haversack, I've carried water in it out of the creek before, so it's pretty watertight. In addition, I do have this wet piece of pine that I'm going to harvest and use as fat wood. So I'm just going to pull all this bark off because this bark has been sitting right next to that rotten stuff, and it's not going to be much good. Now remember, should you be cold, this may not be the best idea. I usually cut down to that first color change. You can see how it's different. That's not wet, that's resin. And what I'm going to try to do is get all the way down into the actual fat wood in that. So I'll just, this is like a thumb assisted cut, sort of like you do a number 7 notch. We've talked about that before. It's been a while, but we've talked about it. That is going to touch my actual flame. Now, that's going to go on the haversack. Knife is going to be secured safely, put away. Wet hands make for injuries. So we have a couple of options at this point. Now, in my kit, since I carry all these cigarette lighters, I can ease this cigarette lighter out, and I can light this fat wood, boom, be in business. I can take these zip fires that's in here, boom, be in business. I can pull this wax jute or other fat wood that I brought from home, instantly be in business. Now, we'll try a couple of different things. I like to fail on camera sometimes, so we'll try this. We're going to try flint and steel. This is from my kit. This is stuff that I carry every day. This is a Francis Kirk steel striker. In my opinion, the best striker around. So I carry one of those. We're going to dig a rock out of here. Oh, I've got a few rocks. Things you have to watch for with strikers is they will get rusty down in your pack. So I'm going to check mine real quick. Make sure I can get a good, good sufficient spark. Now we're going to start talking about prepping a tinder bundle. I'm going to try to use this stuff first. You can see the snow's falling out of the trees on top of me, so that's going to be fun. Pine trees, got these leaves. They hold snow. These are those leaves off of that beech tree. That's a buck beech, the male of the species. I'm going to take them, put it around my char cloth, put it in here and make a little tinder bundle. And that's going to be my fire. And just for fun today, we'll use my tube as well. Got my fat wood that will catch flame pretty quick. Got some relatively dry tinder. We're really working small scale. So let's see here. Let me make sure you're still in the shot. Yes. You can see everything. Take out my char cloth, which is rolled. I place it, like I said, everybody does this a little different. I'm going to place mine on top of the stone. Give it a couple of strikes. That's nice. Got a good ember. See if you can see that. We're hoping. I'm going to face the ember toward me in the tinder bundle so I can blow on it easier. I put it in there. Got plenty of time. This beach is going to go up fast, so Here's that, got fire. Do I like holding this? No, I don't. Don't want to burn myself. Don't want to get hurt. Nobody wants to get hurt. So the beach is burning. Trying desperately to start this fire. We're going to put some more stuff on top of it. My fat wood just lit and went back out. That's great. It's a good thing about not being stingy with your char cloth is I can get this fire going. Alright, we'll go try to retrieve this while we still got an ember. Get our nest rebuilt. You can see my char cloth in there in the center. There you go, one more stab at this. So we're going to process this fat wood on down. The snow's really killing me. Get some good flakes here that we can start in this fire. Yeah, this blue amber out. Yep, blue amber out. So let's try this again. More of a kit. This is a great opportunity to show, you know, things don't always go as planned. Have I done this before? Yes. Have I done it today? No. Did it work? If everything would have been perfect, it would have worked. Amber, put it in my nest. A tube in here. Beech leaves are really bad for this. So now we're going to get our backup plant out, which is my tulip poplar bark. Always have plenty of it. Another good thing to carry in your kit is jute twine, because jute twine makes a good bird's nest. We'll take this tulip poplar bark, we'll break it up. This is something that I've collected. I don't even know how old this is really. See if we can find our piece of char cloth if it didn't already burn up. And it did. So now I got my bird's nest again. Just cover that while I'm doing this. Char cloth. I think I made this in Stanford at Fort Logan a couple years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Make sure my rock's dry. It's relatively dry. It's dry enough. Well, now, Sally. Nice. Char cloth. Bird's nest that I had in reserve. going good. Is it going to burn? No. Reserve, sure flame. Let me get it to where I can see what I'm doing here. What's funny is this charcoal is still going beside of me. Must have caught a snowflake right down in that cigarette lighter. My fat wood lit. I'm going to lay it in that bird's nest. This nest is robbing it, taking the heat out of it. Let it light up a little bit more. Knife time. Cut down into that. This fire's kicking my butt today. Of course, it's the one on camera. That's okay. This is when a fire is its most fragile. That's why I'm really laying these fat wood chips that I just made. And this is fat wood that hasn't dried. Now, if I used my fat wood from my kit, my reserve fat wood, I could have got fire a lot faster. Another good thing that I like to do when the fire is at about this stage is light some punk wood and put in it, because it will hold an ember. So I had a little bit of punk wood that I pulled off that pine. It'll kind of slow things down. This is barely holding on here, folks. See if we can get a fire back. Things are failing. So let's try our next tier, which would be this fat wood that we keep in reserve that I brought, that is seasoned, it's dry, it's perfect conditions. Do a couple thumb pushes, get through it. Take a look at that. If that don't light, we're going home. Now that lighter's being difficult. That's okay, because I have a lighter in my pocket, right? This fat wood's going to light merrily, and it's going to burn like crazy. Try not to crowd this fire. And ironically, that's fat wood that I split back in warm weather. Might have been a couple years ago, though. I don't know how old it is. It's been in my kit. It's been in my kindling box in my living room. You know, just waiting to be used. Now, what was the next step? Could I not get this fire going like this? That's a great question. My next step was, you know, you have your zip fires, which are lighting at a lot higher temperature. And we could slow down, we could split some wood, get to that hearth that's dry, things like that. This is cedar, it will burn, even wet. I had some other steps. Get back here, a little fire safety. Put the fire out though, looping around. Now what we want to pay attention to with this fire is I've got that piece of really good fat wood in there. Is it the only thing burning is the question. If it's the only thing burning, I still don't have fire. So we have to kind of watch it. That can happen. You turn around and your piece of fat wood burns out and it's the last thing you got. Kindling on top, that cedar's catching, the rest of those beech leaves are burning. So that's fire out of my kit in what I would call very poor conditions. Flooding, we had sustained rain. None of this was prepared. I just came out and shot this video. We did have some failure, but we have fire now. Next steps is to graduate this fire, get those larger sticks burning, keep an eye on it. This is definitely not the fire that you walk away from. So we keep that fire going. It's sustained. We keep a sustained fire going. A couple of things you can do once you get other wood burning. You can ease your piece of fat wood out. Put it out. Let it cool. There's our next fire. Still good. I've lit multiple fires, especially doing reenacting when I'm carrying very minimal kit. I've lit multiple fires with the same piece of fat wood, and we'll continue to do so. Don't want to put this back in my kit until it stops smoking. Now, so just a quick note, I was so focused on this camera that I didn't realize that this snow was falling is a very new snow. This is actual snow. This is not snow falling out of a tree. I was so focused on getting that fire started. I've since put the said fire out because there's no point in leaving a fire out here because the snow is coming. But as you can see, this is an actual snow that's falling. We're building the fire using flint and steel, then ultimately using our cigarette lighter during active snow. Could I have used a ferro rod to establish this? Probably. Could I have used store-bought fire starters? Absolutely. But I wanted to show you just how I do my kit. Thanks guys, this is Brett from The Prepared Man. Stay frosty.